This video provides an overview of the upcoming simulation, which will be our final simulation of the semester. And the basic reason for the video is just to kind of give people a quick overview of the upcoming simulation, sort of a preview if you like, in the hopes that this might be helpful in kind of getting everyone maybe in the right space, so to speak, to really take the simulation by storm, as it were. Let me start first by talking about preparation, so what kind of readings you might want to do. First, of course, go over the roles, goals, and resources, role descriptions, and background, which you see immediately below this, the link on the course website where you found the link to this video clip. And I would read through all of the roles and I would read through the whole schedule. Even though your group will not do every single thing in the schedule, it's always good to know when each thing is happening, because it allows you to strategize more effectively and plan more effectively. So I would think about doing that. Next, make sure you read the lecture that is in the folder for this week, week 13 in the course environment, and make sure you take a look at chapter 20, and in particular the first section on how colonizers established political control in the period of the new imperialism, which is basically the late 19th, first part of the 20th century, on the one hand, and section 3, which talks about how colonizers attempted to impose their values through missionary efforts, education, and social categories like tribe and race. I think if you go over these materials, you'll be in a really good position to understand the nuances of the simulation, and that'll make it a more interesting and I think therefore more successful experience for you. So I would definitely strongly recommend that. Now, in terms of how to kind of approach the simulation from a group standpoint, I would strongly recommend, since this is a 4-day simulation, that the groups start gathering definitely by midday on Sunday and really have intense discussions about strategy in place and up and running by Monday, even if you're not going to have to post anything until later in the week. Why do I say this? Well, the basic reason is if you are doing this planning early on, each of you has a better chance of gaining the full amount of participation points for the simulation, because I've noticed that for the first 2 simulations, a number of people have left points on the floor, as it were, just by not posting very much. And I don't think that's because people have been uninterested necessarily. I think it's merely a matter of establishing group momentum, and those planning stages on this coming Sunday and Monday, I think, are a good opportunity to get the ball rolling. So I would strongly recommend that. And again, I would combine this with a thorough overview of the posting schedule, as I recommended in the reading preparations that I just discussed. Next, I would try to, as a group, come up with a method for posting. So if you want to have a schedule, then put the schedule together during your planning meetings. If you would prefer to kind of have one person be the quarterback and organize the posting, that works too. These are 2 very effective methods, but I think it's crucial to decide which method you want to use up front, because then everyone's on the same page and things operate a lot more smoothly. Now, as the roles, goals, and resources backgrounder suggests, in this simulation I am not really an actor, I'm not a participant, I don't provide a lot of information during the course of the simulation. I'll just observe what's going on, because by now each of you has had pretty ample experience with how simulations work, and you're ready to kind of fly solo, in my view. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The next thing I'd like to take up is the context. I'd like to highlight a few elements of the context in which the game takes place. You're talking about French West Africa in, say, the 1930s, roughly, 30s and 40s. That's roughly the era we're talking about. And At this point, French West Africa is completely or fully established, and what that looked like is best accessed by looking at the lecture that I mentioned earlier and the readings I was recommending that you review. But the reason to indicate that French West Africa is fully established is that this is a simulation, means that this is a simulation that occurs at the time of mature late colonialism. That being the case, the relationships that existed between the various actors are in many ways pretty subtle, especially in the case of French West Africa. It's not the case that colonizers are universally trying to exploit people in French West Africa, nor is it the case that the people who are being colonized universally disagree with what's going on, although they clearly are critical, no question about it, because the French did undertake and attempt to implement exploitative practices. The class or socioeconomic rank of the people you're dealing with is similar across all of the various groups, I would say, to include the members of the board of the École in Conakry. And that rank or class is basically middle to upper middle class. These are successful people that we're talking about. So the modernizers have this rank, the keepers of the Malinke ways, they're going to have this rank, the town fathers, everyone basically is going to be coming from a position in their society, which means they have responsibility and duties to carry out, and that they take themselves seriously. So keep that in mind. Next, although this is supposed to be a consensus building context, so in other words, the rules require that the different groups agree with each other, this does not mean that you cannot be critical. You can be polite, but you can have a very strong view. The keepers of the Malinke way are going to definitely have a very concerted view that it's important to maintain these folkways and to maintain the stability of local culture. On the other hand, the modernizers are going to be insistent that, look, we have to get on the bus here and make a move, because these forces that the colonizers have brought to our little neck of the woods are here to stay, and so it's better if we try and steer things than if we are passive. And the town fathers are going to be extremely interested to pay attention to both groups, because they will understand that the education of the next generation is important, and educating the next generation in the way that the local populace is happy with is important. And then if we turn to the colonizers, they have a very strong view as well. They absolutely feel they have something to offer, which is why they take the stance that they do within the context of the game. That said, again, especially in French West Africa, you're not talking about a case of colonizers who are solely focused on exploitation and profit, as, say, was the case in the Congo Free State, which was later called the Belgian Congo. So keep that in mind, that the people you are representing are people who have strong views, but they're not views without subtlety and nuance. And I think if you keep that in mind as you draft your memoranda, the game will be a lot more lively, and I think you'll learn a lot more. So I think that concludes